My 7-year-old daughter stood before a bustling table, wearing the glitzy gold dress she had chosen herself. With her tiny hands, she held a small gift box tightly. The adults in the room were laughing and clinking their glasses, far too engaged to notice her presence, except for me. I was paying close attention. She gazed straight at her grandmother, raised the box slightly, and declared, "Grandma, Dad said to give this to you if you ever ignored me again." An instant silence fell. Forks halted in midair. The music became a mere whisper in the background. Her grandmother, the mother of my husband, offered a tight, puzzled smile, as if she thought it were a prank. However, when she opened the box, she didn't chuckle. Instead, a piercing, primal scream erupted, filling the room louder than the Christmas carols or the gasps that followed, drowning out the eerie silence. People hurried to see what was inside, but I was already aware. My husband had packed that box months earlier, telling me it was intended for the moment his mother overstepped. That moment was today. Allow me to explain how we arrived at this point, illustrating how my daughter became overlooked amid a sea of gifts, and how that small box shattered the facade of smiles that had held this family together for so long. When I married Travis, I believed I was joining a large, affectionate family. They were lively and closely bonded, always planning cookouts, game nights, and festive gatherings. At the heart of it all was his mother, Lorraine. She possessed a commanding voice that could hush a room and an opinion about nearly everything. I assumed this was how strong women managed families, and I genuinely wanted to earn her approval. In the beginning, she seemed to favor me. She smiled at dinner, praised my cooking, and embraced me at farewells. However, it wasn't long before I sensed a change. She began to exclude me from family group messages. I noticed her comments about how different I was compared to the other women in their family, suggesting I lacked the same values they held dear. These remarks were always subtle, just enough to leave me wondering if I was imagining it. Then Zia entered our lives. Zia is my daughter from my first marriage, and was just 2 years old when Travis came into the picture. Without hesitation, he embraced her with patience, love, and the care any father would offer. After we tied the knot, he legally adopted her. In our home, we never used the term step. She was his daughter in every meaningful sense, and he was her dad. Lorraine refused to acknowledge the situation. Initially, she acted as if everything was fine. She would send Zia a birthday card or bring her a small gift during the holidays. But the underlying disparity remained evident. Zia was never invited to sleepovers with her cousins. She missed out on matching Christmas pajamas as well. At family gatherings, while the other grandkids received all the attention, Zia quietly sat off to the side. Lorraine would refer to Maddie as her little princess, buy Jonah his favorite sports equipment, and then casually give Zia a plastic toy or a book that she clearly had forgotten about. Zia picked up on it. Children always do. I attempted to rationalize it. I reassured Zia that Grandma simply forgot, that she cared for her in her unique way. However, with each passing year, this became increasingly difficult to defend. During Thanksgiving, Lorraine presented every grandchild with a personalized plate featuring their name in gold. In contrast, Zia's place was set with an extra plate from the back of the cabinet. That evening, Zia quietly told me, "Maybe she thinks I'm just a visitor." I was at a loss for words. Travis overheard too. Although he stayed silent, I noticed his jaw tighten. It was the first time I wondered if he was beginning to understand as well. Yet, we continued to show up. I convinced myself it was for the greater good, for family togetherness, for traditions, and so Zia could enjoy her cousins and holiday experiences. I reassured myself that love didn't have to be displayed through gifts or matching pajamas. Deep down, however, I knew I was deceiving myself. I remained silent because I feared being perceived as the issue. I hesitated to put Travis in a position to choose between his mother and me, and each time I suppressed my pain, I thought I was doing what was best for Zia, believing that taking the high road would impart a valuable lesson. What I failed to see was that it taught her to accept being treated as less than others. Travis and I had several arguments regarding this matter. Late at night, after Zia had fallen asleep, I would bring it up in hushed, weary tones. He acknowledged the issue but felt unsure of how to address it. He didn't want to upset his mother. I would ask, "And what about Zia?" He would nod and promised to talk to Lorraine eventually but fell silent again. When this Christmas arrived, I felt emotionally drained. I had organized coordinating outfits for the kids, baked extra cookies to share, and wrapped thoughtful gifts for everyone. I kept telling myself, this year could be different. Yet, I felt a shift within me. My desire for validation had faded. I was observing, waiting for the moment when staying silent would be the unkind choice. That moment arrived sooner than I anticipated. Lorraine's smile stood out as she presented Maddie with a shiny new iPad, then placed a gentle kiss on Jonah's cheek while offering him a thick envelope filled with cash. Next, she turned to Zia, gave her a lavender candle and said, "I didn't want you to feel totally left out." In that moment, I caught Travis's eye. He remained silent and still, not even blinking. However, I could sense a change in his expression, and then I realized he remembered what he had told Zia months earlier. The box hadn't slipped his mind, nor had it hers. Lorraine's home was always immaculate during the holidays. She decorated a towering artificial tree that touched the ceiling, adorned with shimmering gold ornaments and sparkling lights. Each branch looked like it belonged in a magazine. The fireplace blazed warmly, the dining table displayed elegant china, and an abundance of gifts piled up beneath the tree, nearly hiding its base. Though it should have felt enchanting, the moment we entered I felt a knot in my stomach. Zia entered before me, her curls bobbing with every step in the golden dress she had chosen. In her hands, she held a small present for Lorraine that she crafted in art class, a painted wooden box embellished with tiny rhinestones. Grandma was written in crooked glitter on the lid, and her pride was evident. When we greeted Lorraine, she hardly acknowledged Zia. Instead, she embraced Maddie and Jonah, laughing heartily about how much they had grown. She handed Maddie a velvet pouch, winking as she said, "Wait to open it," with a broad smile. Turning to Zia, she added, "Hi, sweetie, you look so festive." Glancing at the gift in Zia's hands, Lorraine took it without much attention and placed it on a side table, as if it were an unwanted napkin. Zia remained silent. She exchanged a brief look with me before finding a spot on the couch beside Maddie. The children chatted and played while the adults engaged in light conversation. I sat at the periphery, watching my daughter blend into the background of her own family. Once dinner concluded, it was time for presents. Lorraine loved to make a grand event out of it. She settled into her armchair and distributed the gifts one by one, calling each child forward like a royal. Jonah was first. He tore open an envelope stuffed with cash, prompting applause from everyone. Next was Maddie, who unwrapped a shiny new iPad along with a matching bracelet set made of real silver and crystals. She hugged Lorraine tightly, nearly, dropping the iPad in her excitement. Lorraine called out Zia's name, which was followed by a long silence. Then she lifted a small gift bag and said, "This is for you, sweetie. I wanted you to feel included." Zia quietly got up, approached her, and accepted the bag. Inside lay a lavender-scented candle in a simple glass jar, with a tag attached that read, "To Travis's girl." That was all there was. No envelope, no toy, no sparkle, just a candle and a tag that stung like a knife. I glanced at Travis, who was fixated on the floor with his fingers woven tightly and his jaw clenched. He remained silent. Zia returned to her seat beside me, placing the candle on her lap. She didn't shed any tears or frown, but I could sense her withdrawing, slowly building walls, a silence that tends to linger with a child long after the event has passed. Lorraine continued, as though nothing had occurred. She distributed more gifts while everyone laughed, indulged in dessert, and raised their glasses in toasts with champagne. Yet I was hardly paying attention to any of it. My focus remained on Zia. She politely thanked everyone and feigned interest in the bracelet Maddie was showcasing. Later in the kitchen, I decided to speak to Travis. "You have to say something," I whispered. "She referred to your daughter as Travis's girl, like she doesn't belong here." He hesitated to respond, then replied, "I told Zia to give her the box if this happened again. I let her choose the time." I looked at him in disbelief. "Are you serious?" I asked. He nodded, saying, "She remembers." As we drove home, Zia sat quietly in the back seat, clutching her candle. When she finally asked in a soft voice, "Is Grandma mad at me?" I turned to hold her hand, but Travis responded first. "No, sweetheart," he reassured her. "Grandma just forgot something important. But I think she's about to realize it." Zia glanced down at the box on her lap, the one Travis had gifted her months before, wrapped in plain red paper. She nodded once and declared, "Then I want to give it to her tomorrow." In that moment, I understood this wasn't just another overlooked incident we could easily ignore. This wasn't going to be another lesson in patience or restrained silence. A change was happening. My daughter would no longer remain unseen. That night, upon arriving home, I assisted Zia out of the car while Travis collected the leftover cookies from the back seat. She held a candle in one hand and a small box in the other, both tenderly wrapped, resembling delicate memories. I sensed that she bore more than just her belongings. Though she was quiet, her expression radiated tranquility and determination, as if she had already made a decision. I suggested she might enjoy a bath or a movie before heading to bed, but she declined, stating she preferred to prepare for the next day. I hesitated, asking, "What's happening tomorrow?" Zia looked at me as if the answer were obvious. "Brunch at Grandma's. I'm giving her the box." In that moment, I felt a tightness in my chest, not from fear, but from the clear conviction in her tone. There was certainty, no doubts, simply a choice made by a 7-year-old who had witnessed enough. While I was brushing Zia's hair, Travis entered the room. She looked up at him and inquired, "Can I still give it to her?" He nodded, replying, "It's your decision, Zia. I mentioned that from the start." She smiled, but it wasn't her usual cheerful grin that emerged at the mention of ice, cream, or zoo trips. It was a smaller, more serious smile, as if she recognized the significance of her burden and understood the importance of being acknowledged. After she had gone to bed, I turned to Travis and asked about the contents of that box. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, visibly worn out, as if he had been carrying a tempest for far too long. "A few months back, I watched her and Maddie playing together during Jonah's birthday party," he began. "They were in the backyard when Lorraine called the kids in for cake. Maddie and Jonah received slices loaded with frosting and sprinkles, while Zia got the end piece, bare, without any decoration or candle. I recalled that day and tried to convince myself it wasn't deliberate. She approached me and asked if she was also someone's cousin," he continued. "That evening, I wrote her a letter, reprinted the adoption documents, and packed the box. I told Zia she could give it to my mom if she ever made her feel out of place again." I felt a knot in my throat. "And you never shared this with me?" "I didn't want it to escalate into a conflict," he responded. "I didn't want to pull you into yet another disagreement about my family. But it was important for Zia to know I recognized her feelings. I wanted her to feel she had something solid to rely on. For years, I had wished Travis would assert himself, longing for him to establish boundaries. Here he was, having quietly drawn a line, not through anger or confrontation, but by empowering his daughter. The following morning, Zia prepared herself as if it were a special day at school. She inquired about wearing her glittery gold dress. Once more, she wished to redo her curls. For her hair, she selected the same sparkly headband she had on when Travis officially adopted her. She didn't need to mention it was for good luck. I understood. In the car, she sat with the red box resting on her lap, holding it steadily without any signs of nervousness. Upon arriving at Lorraine's place, everything appeared unchanged. The same wreath on the entrance, the familiar scent of cinnamon and ham, along with the usual polite greetings and empty compliments. However, this time felt different. Not in the surroundings, but within us. We had transformed from guests to a family bringing our truth along. During brunch, Zia remained quiet, barely touching her food. Lorraine praised Maddie's dress on 3 different occasions, but didn't acknowledge Zia's at all. As dessert began circulating after the meal, Zia suddenly stood up. At first, no one regarded her. She made her way to the head of the table where Lorraine sat with her glass of wine and placed the box right in front of her. "Grandma," she stated clearly, "Dad said to give this to you if you ever ignore me again." A tense silence enveloped the room. Lorraine chuckled softly, clearly perplexed. "What's this, dear?" Zia didn't respond. Instead, she stepped back and took her seat again. Travis clasped my hand tightly under the table. The box remained shut, but that wouldn't last long. Lorraine picked up the box skeptically, as if it were a joke. She examined it from different angles, raised an eyebrow, and let out an uneasy laugh that contrasted with the silence hanging over the table. All eyes were on her now. Travis's sister looked bewildered. Maddie was transfixed. Jonah continued munching on a cookie, oblivious to the unfolding drama. Slowly, Lorraine unwrapped the red paper, theatrically drawing out the moment. But the smile on her face quickly vanished when the lid was opened. Inside was a photograph framed in white. It depicted Travis in a hospital chair, cradling Zia on her second birthday, with cake smeared on her cheeks and her arms around his neck. This picture was taken at her adoption party. At the bottom, a caption in gold read, "Day 1 Dad." Beneath the photo lay an envelope, sealed tight. Lorraine's expression changed as she carefully reached inside the envelope with shaking hands. The first document she pulled was Zia's adoption papers, authentic and signed by a judge, with Travis's name clearly marked under Father. She blinked forcefully, hoping that a second look might reveal something different, but it did not. Lorraine carefully unfolded a letter, recognizing the handwriting as Travis's. While she began to read, he remained still, yet I sensed his grip on my hand tighten beneath the table. Silent words escaped from Lorraine's lips, her expression shifting to sorrow with each line. The letter conveyed, "Mom, if you're holding this, it means you have hurt my daughter again. She is not just loved by me, she is mine legally, by promise, and of my own choosing. For years, I have observed how you treat Zia as if she doesn't belong. I wish that would change, hoping you would open your heart like I did. But if she ever presents you with this box, it signifies she witnessed what I have. You don't. Acknowledge her as family. Zia is my daughter and your granddaughter. If you cannot shower her with the same love you give me, then you don't truly love me. I refuse to let her grow up thinking she must earn a spot in this family. She is already a part of it. Always has been. If you can't accept that, you will be unwelcome in our home and lives. Travis." Once Lorraine concluded the letter, she let it drop onto the table as if it had burned her. Her complexion turned pale as she glanced around, seeking rescue from anyone. Silence enveloped the room. Then, something within her seemed to break, and she emitted a scream, sharp and raw, like a curtain was torn from her facade. She rose abruptly, with her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Maddie recoiled. Jonah stood still, and her sister reached for the table to steady it, but Lorraine had already retreated, muttering, "I can't believe you would humiliate me like this." At last, Travis stood up. "You didn't embarrass yourself. You did. That on your own," he stated firmly. Lorraine directed a finger at me. "It's all her fault. She has turned you against your own mother." Rising to my feet, I didn't need to raise my voice. "No," I replied. "Zia offered you a gift, a chance to truly see her. You opted not to." In that moment, the only sound filling the room was the crackling of the fireplace. Zia sat quietly, observant and unafraid, simply watching the truth unfold. Travis reached out his hand to her, prepared to leave. She nodded and stood. I retrieved our coats and assisted her into hers. No one intervened or bid us farewell. Together, we departed. My husband, our daughter, and I, walking away from a house adorned with decorations, elegant centerpieces, and hollow approval. Zia settled into the car and fastened her seatbelt, staring ahead without speaking at first. After a moment, she gently posed the question, "Do you believe she read the entire letter?" Travis, glancing in the rearview mirror, replied, "Every word of it." A subtle smile appeared on Zia's face, not overly bright or dramatic, but enough to show me that a weight had lifted from her. It wasn't due to any change in Lorraine, but but rather because Zia no longer felt the need for her. Following that day, we didn't return to Lorraine's home. Birthday parties ceased, holidays felt less forced, and we stopped pretending. There were no more angry texts or heartfelt phone calls, just a quiet absence. She didn't reach out, and we didn't pursue her. For once, we experienced tranquility. At first, I anticipated Zia might bring her up. I was ready for questions or signs of sadness. Instead, I noticed a serene sense of liberation in her. She no longer kept an eye on the door during family gatherings. She stopped inquiring about why she received different gifts or her name was omitted from group projects. She ceased evaluating her value based on someone else's actions. A change had occurred. One afternoon, about a week post-Christmas, a small, padded envelope arrived for Zia. Inside was a silver bracelet adorned with a tiny heart charm, accompanied by a handwritten note from Maddie. It read, "I'm sorry Grandma was unkind. You're my cousin for life. I bought this with my allowance." Zia read the note twice before putting on the bracelet. Without asking if she could wear it every day, she simply did. That single gesture carried more significance for her than a multitude of expensive gifts ever could. It reminded me that children don't need perfection. They just want to feel special. They need assurance that someone acknowledges, listens to, and values them. Travis also experienced a transformation. He had long carried the burden of being the barrier between his mother and daughter, attempting to reconcile two conflicting worlds. However, after that brunch, I noticed a change in his expression. It reflected not only determination, but also relief. He made a decision. He chose Zia, free from apologies, conditions, or regrets. One night, I discovered him perched on the edge of her bed while she slept, simply observing her breath. He looked up at me and remarked, "I should have done this earlier." I responded, "You did it exactly when she needed you to." We began creating new traditions that were smaller, more intentional, and slower. Zia helped us decorate cookies for our neighbors. We constructed pillow forts and enjoyed movies in our pajamas. Instead of trying to fill the void of what we had lost, we dedicated ourselves to nurturing what was genuinely present. When people mention cutting ties with toxic family members, they often make it sound simple, as if it's just a matter of drawing a line and moving forward. In reality, it's painful, even when it feels justified. The greater pain comes from seeing your child shrink herself to accommodate someone else's comfort. I refuse to let that happen again. My daughter will not continue to accept less just because someone else is unwilling to provide more. That day at Lorraine's table had nothing to do with drama or seeking revenge. It wasn't about creating a scene. It was Zia asserting her right to take up space in a setting where she had always felt like an outsider. It was her declaration, "I belong here," even when someone tried to make her feel otherwise. And it was about us, her parents, finally supporting her in more than just words. Zia doesn't mention the box anymore, and it isn't necessary for her to do so. However, I've kept it. It resides in a drawer in my bedroom, alongside her first baby shoes and the hospital bracelet from the day she entered the world. I hold on to it not to relive the pain, but to remember the courage it took to confront it, the power in her voice, and the quiet strength in her choice. At just 7 years old, she has imparted a lesson that will stay with me forever. Family isn't defined by who puts on the grandest display of love in public. It's not about sharing a last name or blood. Family consists of those who are there when it counts, who shield you during tough times, and who make you feel secure when the world tries to belittle you. Zia has that support, not because someone granted it to her, but because she took ownership of it. And in doing so, she extended that to us as well. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you of someone you're standing up for, or someone you finally held accountable, please take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who needs reassurance that they are not alone, and leave a comment below. I read each one, and your experiences are valued here. If you want more true stories featuring real moments that change lives, consider subscribing to the channel and activating notifications. More is on the way, because sometimes the quietest voices convey the most profound truths.